Takeaways from the Spurs' second preseason loss to the Orlando Magic, 102-99. The first takeaway, man, we got to talk about Kieta. Kieta, is he for real or not? I mean, the consistency is the issue. Sometimes I think he's going to be a great either rotation player. I think he's even good enough right now to argue for a starting spot. But there's that consistency thing with him. Some nights he's not going to bring it at all, and then some nights is like the Laker night against LeBron last year, where he had a perfect game from the field, perfect game from the 3-point line, just didn't mess up, no errors, right? It's just this guy can just do that every once in a while, just like he did against Orlando. He was 4 for 5 from the field, 4 for 4 from the 3-point line, 1 rebound, 2 assists, and 1 steal. And I really like the idea of keeping him at the 4 spot. So, is he going to be able to bring that consistency this season? I think, he's still on a 2-way contract. I don't really understand that, but I like what I see right now coming out of Kieta. And he's making a name for himself and making an argument for himself that he belongs on this squad and in a big way. Number 2, Malaki Branham just about over everybody else, that's not Josh Richardson, basically, or like Devin Vassell, Primo. In these first 2 preseason games, we're starting to see a little steady dose of Malaki Branham, and he's been consistent on both nights of these 2 preseason games, and he's been able to hit some nice shots, look very poised, very mature for his age, definitely for a rookie, right? With the 20th pick, I think right now he's looking to overachieve. And I'll tell you what, the pressure just went up in that locker room with Malaki Branham being able to play and produce and kind of day one, like he's just coming in with this mature mindset. And it seems like it's not going to take him too long to be NBA ready. And then when you're talking about guys like Romeo Langford and Joe Wieskamp, who are kind of in that similar spot, trying to fight for minutes on this squad, obviously I think that Malaki is shooting better than Joe. Maybe, he's getting more minutes than Romeo Langford. Something that we want to look at for sure is that somewhere there in the third quarter, Branham actually got some minutes with some of these second unit guys, right? Like Zach Collins, Blake Wesley, Doug McDermott, and Jeremy Sohan also is kind of in that third tier of players. But this is something new in these 2 preseason games. We're actually seeing Malaki Branham being inserted a little bit before he was against the Rockets. And we might want to see if that is going to continue or not. Is he going to keep getting more minutes or not? And he might just end up edging out some other players on this roster. All right, so the third takeaway from this was there was this awesome stretch in the second quarter where we had these 2 big man lineups out there. We had Blake Wesley running the point, Devin Vassell at the 2 spot. We had Kieta Diop at the 3, and then we had Jakob Poeltl at the 5. And then there was 2 lineups, right? They tried that lineup with Isaiah Roby, and then they tried it with Jeremy Sohan. And I loved them both, right? Isaiah Roby is a little bit more heady. There wasn't as much pace or athleticism, but there was more poise. There was better passes. There was good shooting with Isaiah Roby out there on the floor. And then they subbed Isaiah out for Jeremy Sohan, and then they had that big man lineup out there, which was very interesting. There was a lot more athleticism. There was more pace. When we look at it here, we can see the lineup with Isaiah Roby, who's on the top of your screen, right? And then if we look down here, they ended up subbing him out for Jeremy Sohan, who was kind of coming around on this late block at the rim. Ended up, just being a little late on that rotation. But look at that athleticism that he's able to bring. I believe that's Mo Bamba. That's Mo Bamba dunking the ball right there. And sure enough, man, Sohan is able to get up there. So there's 2 different looks with these big man lineups, though. But we remain big with both of them. Now, in the future, we might see, Josh Primo or Trey Jones as the point guard or whatever. But these 4 players right here, if you have 3 of them on the court at the same time, that's very interesting basketball. And I hope that it solves some of these issues that we had last season regarding defending the rim, getting rebounds, being able to defend longer teams. Like we've had such a hard time defending long athletic teams over the past 2 or 3 seasons. And this type of lineup addresses that. Number 4, is that Josh Richardson, man, is a dog, and I don't ever want to see him leave this squad. Doug McDermott is going to be so valuable this season, being able to just kind of hit those open shots when we can't generate anything. And Gorgie Jang looked great. He looked great against Orlando. Played I think like 9 minutes, but in that 9 minute span, I'm like, bro, I mean, we need 12 minutes, 15 minutes a game from Gorgie Jang. The way Zach Collins is kind of progressing is a little slow. Zach Collins shows some good things. And he also shows that, hey, man, like he really needs to work on getting that athleticism underneath him to be able to bang with these big guys. So you insert a guy like Gorgie Jang, and he just goes in there, gets a block, hits a three, nice little pass, and nice. He just comes in and actually plays pretty well with these young guys. And all three of these guys are players who I thought might be on that trading block because they might have value. I'm thinking we just let them play and stick around the whole season. Let them be around our young guys. Let our young guys develop and soak what they can out of these three dudes. Doug McDermott said that he's willing to stay here his whole career if they let him. This is the second time we brought back Gorgie Jang, and I think that Richardson, he's obviously a guy that can compete on a title team. He can be a bench rotation guy on a really good playoff team. But I mean, he loves being here, and I love having these three dudes in on this roster. And if they're going to be the three veteran guys that are just can just kind of help get this young group to where they need to go by the end of the season, I love that. So I think as an outside perspective looking in, if you're watching this, you want to be supportive of these guys staying on this roster. Sorry, Bill. You want to be supportive of these guys staying on this roster. That's for sure, because they're doing great things right now. All right, so my fifth takeaway is that I think we can finally start kind of shaping this roster a little bit. Trey Jones, I like at that starting spot. Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and right now, today, I think that there's a carousel going on with that fourth position. I think on any given night, it could be Kieta, it can be Isaiah Roby, and eventually, if Jeremy Sohan shows that, hey, I'm a lottery pick and we're better with me on the floor and I'm bringing a lot to the table, then maybe even Jeremy Sohan. But let's see how that kind of paces itself out throughout the season and see who ends up getting that starting spot and really holding on to it for as long as they can. I wouldn't bet on that spot being solidified at all at any point in this season, unless it's like Keldon, Keldon back at the four, and we go small and we're inserting another guard or somewhere there with this lineup. So I really like Kieta Bates Diop there right now. I think he has great experience and chemistry with guys like Keldon and Jakob and Devin already. So I mean, the cohesiveness is there for him to come in and be one of those guys that does minimal things but does them extremely efficiently. And I think Kieta is lined up to have a big year if he stays on this roster. And that's the other thing. We got to keep Kieta. We can't. He's too valuable. What he does with his length and athleticism and the way he can go from the 3 to the 4, even guarding some of the small ball fives. It's like, bro, he's too valuable. Let's get him on an NBA contract already, San Antonio. That brings Joshua Primo off the bench, and it might just be the start of the season and him having the injury and all that. But I don't hate the idea of Joshua Primo being the backup point guard, being the sixth man on this team, and being able to really hone that second group. Because if we're looking at a roster, let's keep looking at this bench unit right here. That's a pretty good bench when you think about having Joshua Primo at the point, Josh Richardson, Doug McDermott, Isaiah Roby, Zach Collins, bro, all these vets, right? It's like all these veterans around Joshua Primo versus like what he was doing in the G League last year, just around all these rookies and non-guaranteed players and guys that are on two-way contracts or whatever. It's like, no, actually you put all these guys around Primo that are going to be able to play a role around him. It really makes it interesting, like if we can actually build the second unit to help Primo evolve into some type of leader and like a number one guy, right? So I really like the idea of the bench unit being stacked with vets and inserting Joshua Primo. I'd rather have that than having Trey Jones, in there because where's the upside? Where's the upside in that bench unit if Trey Jones is your starting your point guard and Primo goes from the bench up to the starting unit? I think it raises the ceiling of your starting unit, but I think it dramatically drops the floor of your bench, right? So I think this is something that I'm liking right now, and that makes the third tier of players. If we look up on the other side, third tier players, we can go through this here, right? So these are my starters at this point. That makes my bench unit look something like this. Now let's go ahead and go over to the third stringer guys. Blake Wesley has looked awesome at that point guard position. Malaki Branham is arguably going to be extremely important this year as guard play plays out and injuries and so on, because he's showing right now that he can actually hit some jump shots and be not be a liability on defense. So that's good to go. That's good to know. Then we also have Gorgie Dang, right? I already love Jang. I love what he does on this squad. I love what he can bring. He just seems to have this like veteran leadership of like, I don't care that we're bad. I'm gonna be the best like veteran that I can be. I think that's why we brought him back a second time. Now this is where it gets interesting, and you might not, might not be here with me, and at this point, but this is where I am today, man. Yesterday we saw Tommy Kuzi play like what 5 minutes or something. I don't know. Let me go and check. Tommy Kuzi played a total of 7 minutes last night. 7 minutes, and what I saw in that 7 minutes made me want to take him over Joe Wieskamp, over Romeo Langford. And I know those guys are, Joe was a second round pick. Romeo Langford was a former lottery pick. And who is Tommy Kuzi? Well, it's like, bro, one, he's a really good guard. He's a really good point guard. I don't know if if we got to see him play against Orlando. Go look at the highlights. If you look at that fourth quarter, at the end of the highlights, you're going to see some play from him, and I love it. Honestly, I'm willing to bet on Malaki Branham over Joe Wieskamp and Romeo Langford at this point. And I like having a guy like Tommy Kuzi on the roster. I guess you can compare him to the guy in New Orleans, Alvarado, right? He's like this, or maybe that Capuzzo from Denver, right? The really short point guard. He's not that short, but he plays with that type of ferocity, speed, playmaking, ability to make right passes. And I think he's ready to go. I think he's good to go. I think he's a great third or fourth string point guard. If any of our point guards get hurt, or if Blake Wesley is spending a lot of time in the G League, bro, Tommy Kuzi is the guy to have on your roster. Okay, so that's kind of my big wow moment right now, is that I'll take Tommy Kuzi right now over having Joe Wieskamp on the roster, having Romeo Langford on the roster. And obviously cutting Alize Johnson is kind of a no-brainer at this point. We already have Jordan Hall and Dominic Barlow on our two-way contracts, which means that they're going to be up and down from Austin all season long. And, they'll be able to play for San Antonio if San Antonio needs them there. So at this point, this is how I'm seeing this roster play out. It's not the most prettiest of rosters, but I think it maximizes how good it can be. Now, if that's the goal, I think maybe this is something you look at, is organizing your rotations in some type of way. So what's next for the Spurs? They got the New Orleans Pelicans on Sunday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you go to the community tab on my YouTube channel, you're going to see my Polo pick of the week. I love polos. I wear polos all the time, going golfing in them and all that type of stuff. I got a lot of Spurs polos, and right now I'm in that polo season. So the Polo pick of the week is this Antigua Spark Polo. The link to it is in the description on below in this video and on the community tab. So I'm going to start posting stuff every week, all right? So expect another one of these videos sometime next week. Hopefully covering this New Orleans game, or maybe New Orleans and the next bundle of preseason games. We'll keep it fresh on this channel. But thank you guys so much for hanging out. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, the Reels on Instagram, going off. Facebook, I'm going to try to be more available to my viewers on Facebook. I know a lot of Facebook viewers love this type of content where I break stuff down and talk for a little while. Twitter, I'm always on Twitter, just checking up stuff, joining Twitter Spaces. I'm always in Noah Magaro George's Twitter Space, and so shout out to him for having me on there every once in a while. So you can catch me there. So look for me on TikTok as well. If you're on TikTok, I post the same stuff that I post on Instagram on TikTok, right? Nothing really too crazy there. I'd prefer you to be on my Instagram, but whatever. So thank you guys for hanging out. Those were my 5 takes.